Yeah, I think it's sort of unfortunate that everyone feels like they have to go it alone in life. We don't naturally have a team right out the gate. I mean, most family structures are kind of like obliterated at past a certain age and you're just on your own. And maybe if you have good friends that are willing to work with each other, then I mean, you're blessed and you have some leverage. But for most people, they feel like they have to go out and make their entire life, like at a young age, off their own back and their own struggling, and it's just so like inefficient. We're social animals. We're evolved to be hunting big game animals in a large group of hunters, not like by yourself in one-on-one combat with something you clearly shouldn't be taking on alone.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like, if we're all facing survival, it's impossible to do it as an individual. You actually need people to rely on. So instead of going out into life and trying to have this hustle mindset and get everything for me by myself, like if we all could just support each other and work together, you know, that's the only way. It's not only the best way, but it's the only way. And if you somehow manage to do it all alone, I almost guarantee you that that man is not as happy and not as fulfilled. Who are you going to share it with when you have the entire world at your fingertips? You've built this kingdom. Does it even really matter if you don't have anybody there to enjoy it with?
And I think the unfortunate reality is just that, like, many people feel alone, with the battle they're fighting, and they want to have a team to like be a part of it, but it feels like the relationships they have, the people in their lives, would also rather just go it alone. Like they don't really want to form together and work on the same thing, and they'd kind of rather take their own chance and just do it alone for whatever reason. And then it's like, do I want to be on the same team with people I haven't known my whole life, people I'm not as comfortable with? So you're sort of like, I'd rather be alone than try to get someone to be a part of this who I'm not, that close with, I guess.
Well, it's extremely difficult to work with people, especially when there's personal things at stake. But I think the key is to attract people that want similar long term futures for themselves. If they want the same thing you want then and you want it bad enough, then everything along the way will be resolved in order to reach this higher thing. But in the case of, let's say, coworkers, you have to be on their team. So then I think the difficulty of the differences and not really being aligned in the same way is actually a learning opportunity to be on a team with someone that may not share the same beliefs or values. Kind of like a family structure, how because you're connected by blood, you have to work out your differences. And then it becomes the most valuable thing because somebody that you could normally just run away from because you're that different, maybe it's your brother. And although you fight with them, you have to face those things that bring up contrasts within your personality. And it's valuable to both people. So it's a team that you might even be enemies. And your adversary is teaching you lessons along the way. Like this contrast between human beings, I think it's really the key to this whole society thing. It's like the most valuable thing. It's the goal. It's the reward. It's the hardest thing. It's the biggest ingredient to this whole game we're playing.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important to spend your time around people who have similar interests. Like, there's this famous saying where it's like, you are the aggregate of the 5 people you spend the most time around. And that's so true. Like, whether we realize it or not, like, what the people we're around are focused on is going to determine the trajectory of our life. If you decided to specifically sort of distance yourselves from the wrong crowd and start spending more time with people who have similar goals in life, want to be in similar places, and are interested in similar things, then they're more likely to present you with opportunities along that path, or at least just keep you motivated, give you ideas. Maybe there's someone who, you could bring onto your team and if present them with an opportunity. Like, really, if people are resources, you need to be surrounding yourself with the ones you can make the best use of, as if you're playing some kind of card game and you need the right deck where each piece synergizes in the right way. Not to like objectify people or to demean their innate human value. You can have deep, meaningful relationships with people who aren't a part of your team, But I think that you still should invest in having a team, because I think that's where your life has much more potential in whatever direction you're trying to pursue.
Yeah, you could maximize the relationships you have and constantly being looking for them. And I think you could also surround yourself with things that are attractive and valuable to other people so that you can have a little bit of leverage when it comes to establishing powerful connections. And powerful doesn't have to be monetary or based on status, but having people around you that are disciplined, that are intelligent, that have things to teach you. Like, if what you wanted to be was a smart man, a powerful man, you'd want to surround yourself with those types of people that have the things that you want. And even sometimes just being a good listener or a good student, being humble enough to listen, sometimes the masters like to have you around so that they have someone to teach, they have someone to reflect off of. And I find that the people that want things bad enough end up in that position on some type of team, being mentored, being trained, and then it's almost inevitable because the things that they want are so close to them because the people they spend their time around already have those things.
That's why you have to be humble too. Like, if you go into it assuming you're already the master, you'll never truly reach that point. And yeah, like, you really should surround yourself with people who are better than you. You should surround yourselves with the people you'd want to be. And even if you feel somewhat inadequate or they're so much better than you, you'll start to adapt really quickly. It's like when, I started hanging out with you and your friends and we went skiing a lot. I was the worst skier, and it was my first season, and by the end of it, I could shred black diamonds and I wasn't as good as any of you, your friends. But because you were the baseline that I was trying to reach the whole time, I got really good really quickly because it felt like I had no other choice. If I instead decided, like, you guys are too good, I'm gonna go ski with these 9-year-olds over here, I probably would never have gotten as good as you guys. I probably would have stayed at the same level of those 9-year-olds. I think some people, whether they realize it or not, might be surrounding themselves with people who they see as, not having any clear direction or not having any like clear goals in life, so that they can almost feel better than their friends, or they don't have to be a student, that they can just feel secure in what they already are. It's kind of like this insecurity, like you don't want to surround yourself by someone who has what you already have, because then you're just going to feel inadequate. But it's like, if you want to be really good at chess, you should surround yourself with people who can beat you all day at chess, and just be that, student, be that person who's just willing and motivated to learn and willing to lose over and over, and just keep moving on up, I guess.
Yeah, it is extremely important who you surround yourself with, and I feel like you reflect certain qualities in the relationships that you attract. And you have to be careful because sometimes you attract relationships based off of qualities that aren't necessarily favorable, and they're reinforcing parts of you that maybe need to evolve. And so being really deliberate in the interactions that you have is so important when it comes to habits and mindset. Also, I think it's important to have a varying degree of people in your life. There's always people that I've attracted that weren't necessarily anyone like I've met before, and maybe I didn't even like them at first because they were so different from me. But then as the relationship evolved, I started getting something out of it, that interaction that I'm not used to, that I'm not really getting anywhere else, like a new perspective, a new side of myself that's being brought out by interacting with this person. And it's not necessarily what I thought that I wanted out of a relationship, but those seem to be the ones that stand out for me, that become the most valuable. And I think that having deeper relationships, long-term relationships, is infinitely more valuable than having a bunch of surface level ones. You invest in people and they start to love you. Like, when you can make family of someone that's not related to you, those people will die for you, and the people that want to die for them will now die for you. Like, family is something that extends past the person into their resources, their camp, and that's something that goes beyond blood.
Yeah, like, you need the sort of friend where if you made a massive mistake and you're like stranded out in the desert somewhere, you can call them up and be like, yo, Like I really messed up and I desperately need help. Like, can you come pick me up? I'm out in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, and
Can
he's
I
like,
sleep
I
on your
can't,
couch?
I can't do it, but my grandpa will do it because you're my best friend.
Yeah, like, if you're surrounding yourself with the kind of friends who would answer that call and be like, bro, nah, like I have work tomorrow, and just hang up, like that's not a friend. That's just someone who, you mutually benefit from having each other in your lives, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty common for sure. I see that a lot. And I feel like that just makes you even more lonely. Having superficial, sometimes even fake relationships that are based on things and not necessarily just the deepest level of human connection, they fall apart quickly. And I think usually sometimes you get caught in the crossfire when these relationships end, when they're not based on things. Like, look at all these marriages that when they fall apart, it's not just the loss of a beautiful relationship, it becomes a war zone that's based off of all the things that got shared along the way, combined. And
Yeah,
man, isn't that a mistake?
and it kind of feels hollow too. Like I found with relationships like that, sometimes I'll get a little bit too comfortable and think that like we are, like pretty close and that I can open up a little bit. And sometimes I'll realize that this person just isn't capable of having like a real meaningful friendship. And, I get a little bit too comfortable and they almost like shoot me down in a way or like give me some like weird attitude. Like you start to like get excited about something and open up to them about something you care about, or you try to like, ask them about something kind of personal or anything and they're just like close up, and suddenly you realize where your relationship stands. You're like, oh, like we're not, that we're not that close. I can't actually talk with you about this.
Yeah, you have to be very careful when you're opening up to somebody and you are now vulnerable, your heart is exposed to this person, you are subjecting yourself to pain. And the possibility of pain, I think, is always constant because you can't even trust yourself not to hurt yourself. You can never trust everybody fully all the time, but I don't think it's healthy to go around not trusting anybody. So I find what's interesting is that I think you can only love somebody fully when you can also detach from somebody fully. Like if you aren't truly exposing yourself completely, then all of a sudden you're not risking anything and you can love that person fully. It's a weird dichotomy. Like, I don't want to love you so much I expose myself to you and have you break my heart. But if I can just love you like I would an animal in the forest or a beautiful view in the mountains, love you like a spectacle of nature and not something possessive, then I feel like you can avoid being disappointed and hurt by people along the way. It's not an attachment, it's kind of just an enjoyment.
Yeah, I think people get like too comfortable with having a close relationship, like a mirror for themselves. They almost like look for this person to maintain who they are, and they're like, well, at least, if I have problems, I can go to this person and complain about it, and they'll listen to me and try to see it from my perspective, and we can like rant to each other about our lives. And that sort of becomes like a toxic relationship over time, whether people realize it or not, because you start to disrespect each other's own independence, that you're separate individuals. And it's sort of like, yeah, it's just like a step too far in a way.